let me tell you something from my experience, okay? I have a YouTube page, and it was about 40 minutes. Took me about 40 minutes. When I make YouTube videos, they're 5 minutes. They're on a long video, 8, 9 minutes. Now, I only bring the 40 minutes into it because what I did a little bit different over the weekend is I just sat in my chair with the camera on, and I watched Kevin Holland versus Brunson. Now, the reason I relive this for you, okay, because I'm doing that for YouTube, two things are happening. Please try to picture this. But one is the device I'm watching on, I cannot face towards the camera because any image of that is owned by the UFC. Oh, by the way, I turned the volume down. This is what I'm getting at. I turned the volume down because any audio captured from that is from the UFC. So the camera and the audience I'm allowing in is just allowed to watch me as I watch it. Very relevant because I had a great time doing it. I watched the entire fight, 5 rounds, 40 minutes flew by, just had a lot of fun. And I had a lot of very good responses from the audience who enjoyed this experience. But I leave and I talk to Joel. I call Joel on the phone or vice versa, and I take his call. He says, man, I've never been more pissed off in my life as a fight fan. And I go, why? And he goes, why do you think? I said, Joel, I don't know what you're talking about. He goes, man, that was so annoying. For 25 minutes, I got to listen to that guy talk. That was ridiculous. I go, whoa, Joel. Tell me everything. I don't know what you're talking about because I had no volume. I had no volume on this. Well, apparently Kevin Holland, and I have to use the word apparently because my experience, I didn't see it. Or at least I didn't hear it. Kevin Holland talked to Brunson the entire time, never stopped. Apparently in between rounds, Holland was talking to Dana and Khabib nonstop, and apparently from a viewer, or at least from Joel, the one viewer I spoke to, it was brutally annoying. Now, I then read at the post-fight press conference, Dana White called it a mental breakdown and compared it to Oliver McCall, who, by the way, I'm old enough to remember. Oliver McCall was in the ring boxing, and not only did he stop boxing and stop offering resistance to his opponent, he began crying. He had a mental breakdown, and it was so bad that, yes, they stopped the fight. And this is a main event, if you guys remember Oliver McCall, but he was a big deal, great big guy in the heavyweight division. This might have been a title fight when he did this. And he's in the ring bawling, and he said afterwards he had a mental breakdown, but the promoter went as far as to say, I'm not going to pay you. Our contract says I pay you to show up to fight. You did not fight. You went into the ring. You did not fight. You did not put your hands up. You were not knocked out, TKO, disqualified, and they still had to find a way to stop the fight. That's not a fight. I'm not paying you. Now, commission said, yes, you are. He showed up, your cameras went live, audience tuned in, but I only bring that part of the story to you because this was at least 20 years ago when Dana read the reference. I knew exactly what he was talking about, but I could not equate that to Holland because I didn't listen. I had the volume down, off. I had the volume off. So I didn't know, and I still don't. I have Joel's opinion. Sometimes I really like Joel. Sometimes I think Joel's a buffoon. I want to hear from you guys. How bad was this? And you're going to get a take from a guy who has to openly admit and has spent the last 5 minutes disclosing, I didn't hear it. But I've never looked at Kevin Holland's trash talk during a fight as some kind of a psychological warfare. I've never looked at it as disrespectful, and it has yet thus far to be, for me, annoying. Now, the point that Joel was attempting to make is it was 25 minutes. Oh, and by the way, he's getting his ass kicked. I mean, we had two elements there that we've never had from Kevin Holland before. First, Kevin hasn't got his ass kicked. He did the trash talk, came out looking good, came out winning, came out with his hands above his head in victory. And secondly, he's never gone 25 minutes. Look, in all fairness, 25 minutes is too long to do anything. I like candy bars. I don't want to eat a candy bar for 25 minutes. I mean, right? It's called the law of diminishing marginal utility. For any of you that want to take a business class or that I can save you the time of reading the book, but it means a good thing is not a good thing over a long period of time. And the candy bar example is the one that they actually will use in the book. Your first 2 or 3 bites is great. You're doing the same thing 10 minutes later, and all of a sudden you're sick. You don't want to do it. Why? It's the same thing. It's the same thing that you enjoyed doing, but you get the point, right? The candy bar examples of finding a point. And it seems as though there was a tipping point somewhere in here with Kevin Holland, who, by the way, was losing minute after minute and round after round. And that's the gamble that you take. I'm not as mad at Kevin Holland as, I guess, at least Joel. But I'd love to hear from you guys. And I also don't know if I would interpret it as a mental breakdown, because I've always thought when Kevin Holland is doing that, that is a reset for him. And in the world of the pandemic, we're all going to be let in on it. No pandemic, live crowd, the way it's going to be in Florida in a month, the way it's going to be in Texas after that, you wouldn't hear it. And I also never bought into the idea that he's doing it to be disrespectful or psychological warfare, because he's done it to opponents as recently as Jacare, who don't even speak the language that he's doing it in. So I believe it's a reset for Kevin. Kevin's trying to stay playful. But it is something either way. If Dana says problem, you got a problem. Dana says stop, you got to stop. This is not a debate. I'm sure if Kevin was here right now, and I will have Kevin on, we will get Kevin's side of this, guys. If it's a reset, though, Kevin's going to have to figure it out. I'm willing to give him a pass. There's some real lessons that he needed to learn in that fight, and I trust that he did. Primarily, number one, from a physicality standpoint, you got to get up off the bottom. And if you can't get off the bottom, you have to try to get up off the bottom. Trying to get up off the bottom, the techniques involved in that are going to force different pressures from the top man, of which you can sit back, off balance him, sweep him, or go into your submissions. If you're only doing a submission game, you are never going to submit a guy, ever, in a main event from your back. Hasn't happened. And don't bring me an example where you know that it has happened. Hasn't happened. What you're seeing and you're believing as a submission from the back is the top guy he had enough. The rear naked choke is the sign amongst athletes, I've had enough. Get me out of here. I'm tired. I'm getting hurt. Give you my back, sink this in, we'll all make it look real and get up and go home. I'm only bringing that to you because Kevin Holland really looked like he believed in jiu-jitsu. Even Tony Ferguson, who does jiu-jitsu and will submit you from his back, he is going to ground and pound you first. He is going to distract you. He is going to look to reverse you, to off-balance you, to sweep you, to stand up, and then he will come. He has never got a submission. The great Tony Ferguson is a great example to use. Without offering the other two, he will offer you strikes. He will offer you the threat of an escape. That is when he will find a submission. Now, I bring that to you because that's what Kevin has to learn from this fight. Without question, but nothing. He must, from a physicality standpoint, understand the strategy of being on your back is never going to gain you favor with the judges. But the percentages of guys who are winning fights from their back, particularly main event fights, main events and championship fights, it just simply isn't happening. Broad stroke, I get it, but it's not happening. As far as the talking, as far as him engaging Khabib, I don't get it myself. It would seem as though that is where the mental breakdown part came in, because he wasn't able to recompose. To have a break in between rounds, to catch your breath and gain some kind of information from your coaches, and to pass that up, to speak to a guy through a level of showmanship. And look, he took a risk. Kevin took a risk. What is cool? What is showman? What's annoying? I'm giving him a pass. Young guy, has some stuff to learn. Stand-ups, threats from the bottom, one of them. Secondly, right, let's give him a pass. Kevin Holland's given us enough entertainment over the last year. He screwed one up. Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. Kevin says he's going down to 170. Give Kevin another chance.